مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. قال الله عز وجل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. Respected and honorable brothers and beloved youngsters, I humbly request the brothers once again if they can come closer. Inshallah, it will be beneficial for all of us. Today's topic or today's talk will be in regards to this ayat which I have recited before you. I was thinking every Friday we talk about something. What should we talk about today? There's one message which is given to us every single Friday by the khatib, whether we understand or we don't understand. And he concludes his khutbah or his speech or his lecture in Arabic by reciting this ayat here, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُ بِالْعَدْلِ وَالْإِحْسَانِ وَإِيتَاءِ ذِي الْقُرْبَى. Now this is a reminder for all of us, and it's every single Friday. Now we've been reminded with 6 things. We have been told to do 3 things and abstain and keep distance from 3 things. But unfortunately, many of us don't even know what that is, what those items are, and what the khatib is talking about. So I thought, let's just go through each one of them, and inshallah we can probably understand what this ayat is and how important this is. Before we can talk about these 6 things here, the 3 things to do and 3 do's and 3 undo. What do you call 3 don'ts. 3 do's and 3 don'ts. Now before we can talk about that, let's try understanding how important this ayat is. They say that in Arabic language there's a term used, jami' mani'. In English you can translate this to be comprehensive, concise and comprehensive. Now this ayat in the whole Quran is one of the most comprehensive and concise ayat. In our language, short and sweet. There is a saying in Arabic language, the best speech is khairul kalami ma qalla wa dalla. The best speech is that speech, khairul kalami ma qalla wa dalla, which is short wa dalla, and it's also meaningful. In other words, short and sweet. And if you look at the speech of the Quran itself and the speech of Prophet ﷺ was exactly the same. He never used to give long lectures for hours and hours as we are accustomed to today. Short and sweet. Few words, few important message given after the salat, and that's about it. Khairul kalami ma qalla wa dalla, which is short, wa dalla, and it's also meaningful. So this ayat here is exactly the same. To such an extent that from the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz rahmatullahi alayh, from his time, this trend started where every khutbah, every Friday khutbah, this ayat which was also put into the khutbah, into the speech. So from his time, every khatib, when he was giving his Friday sermon, he would include this ayat in it, and rather he would conclude his khutbah and his sermon with this ayat. So our Friday sermon is normally concluded with this ayat here. Now obviously just think about it, an ayat which we are constantly being reminded of. What does it mean? It is also mentioned, there's one story which the Mufassirin and the commentators of the Quran, they also mention, Aktham Sayfi radiyallahu an, it is mentioned about him that when he heard about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that there is a person in Mecca who is preaching Islam and calling people towards oneness of Allah. So they were surprised, he was surprised, and he wanted to know more about Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he decided, he was a leader of his tribe, his clan, so he decided to go himself and find out more about who this person is. But his people advised him that he should not go because he is the leader. Rather, he should send someone two delegates to find out exactly who this person is and what is he teaching. So he sent two people, and they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they asked two questions, just two questions. Many times, we start a conversation, we start asking questions, which don't even make sense. In fact, it is mentioned in the hadith. A lot of people, many youngsters have this habit. They want to ask questions which is hypothetical, which does not even exist. What if you're stuck in the air? How can you make wudu? Or how can you pray salat or something? Some hypothetical question, if it's a reality and you ask that, it's a different thing. But to ask questions which are completely meaningless, it's not appropriate. In the light of hadith, we are discouraged. In fact, it is a sin. It's not good to ask those type of questions. So they asked two questions. The first question was very simple. Man anta and wama anta. Who are you and what are you? Man anta, obviously their intent was, what is his lineage? If you want to find out, especially in today's time, this product here, okay, who makes this product? Where does it come from? So they wanted to know the genealogy and the lineage of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, who is the son of Abdul Muttalib. That's all. Short and sweet answer. And the second question was, Ma anta, what are you? And he gave a very simple answer, that he is calling, I came with the deen of Islam, and I am calling people towards oneness of Allah. And after that, he recited this ayat here, Inna Allaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba. So the two delegates who had come, they said that, can you repeat this ayat a couple of times so we can memorize that? And obviously we know that, especially at that time, they had exceptionally brilliant memory, because they had no tools of writing things down. The only mode of preserving things and messages were memory, which was the most common way of preserving things. So they memorized this text here, and then they went back to Uqtam Sayf radiallahu anhu, who later became a Muslim, upon hearing this message from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Uqtam Sayf radiallahu anhu mentions, and he tells the people, that if he is this person who is giving the message of these good characters, noble characters, and he is spreading peace, he is preaching peace, and he is telling the people of good things, I think you should be the first one to accept Islam. You should be the first one to embrace Islam before other Arab tribes can go to him. You should be the first one. And he himself went there and he accepted Islam. So, there are many other stories mentioned in regards to this ayat here. But let's just go through this ayat here first. There are 3 do's and 3 don'ts. The first 3 do's. Inna Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ya'muru. He orders you. He ordains you. He is telling you. It's a command from Allah to do justice. Ya'muru bil adli. Wal ihsan. To do good. Okay, now all these 3 things here, they have a deep meaning. So today we will only focus on the first one. But let me just go through the do's and the don'ts. So the second one was ihsan. Now there's a lot of details for that. Inshallah we'll talk about in another program. And the third one is wa ita'i dhil qurba. To be good to your kins and your relatives. To build ties with your relatives. وَيَنْهَا عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ. And he ordains you, he is telling you to refrain from fahsha, lewdness, immodesty, munkar, unlawful things. Those things which Shariat and Islam has forbidden you from. And the last thing was wal-bagh, injustice. Now let's go through the first one here, al-adl. How important this is in the light of Islam. When we talk about obviously civilization, obviously the most crucial system is justice system. Right? If you don't have any justice system in place, then picture yourself right now that alhamdulillah we have a justice system, we have everything in place, we have the courts in place, we have the police in place, we have the law enforcement, and because of all that, we are all in order. This country is in order. But think about those places where there is no such thing as justice. Lawlessness. There is no law. What happens there? Then there is no control over anyone. So one of the, it is Islam here, right from the Quran itself. Before even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, we find even in previous Shariat, for example, Dawud alayhi salatu salam, Sulaiman alayhi salatu salam, and many other prophets, justice system was always in its place. It was always there. And let's just go through a few examples which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions. In fact, to mention how important justice is. Now first, let's go through, what do we mean by justice? Al-adl. There's three meanings to it. Number one, al-adl means, you being just with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So justice with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that mean? When you have, when you see the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your own rights, or your own desires, then obviously you need to put forward the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before your rights. The second the second part of justice is within your own self. Treating your own self. Meaning being fair to your own self. And a simple example for that is doing justice with your own self. And how do you do justice with yourself? You treat your body properly. How do you do this? Well, obviously, you don't eat those things which will make you unhealthy. That is injustice to your body. You don't do those wicked things. I'm using this word wicked here, but I hope you understand in the proper meaning, right? Because when I say wicked, it normally means what? Good things? No, I mean wicked, evil things, okay? So you don't do those evil things because that is injustice. You don't, some people, I heard, someone sent me an email the other day, and they were basically in Saudi Arabia, they have nothing to do. So what they do is they do crazy car driving, they're racing. And it's so fatal that they lose control. It was documented by New York Times. It was so fatal that, they lose control. And when they lose control, it blows up in the air, the car. And not only he kills himself, but he's also killing some people, the audience. And it was shown on the documentary. And I don't know how many people are doing it. Is this justice to yourself? No, not at all. You don't do those foolish things which will hurt your own self. And the third part of justice and adl is doing justice to the makhluk, the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So your dealings with the people, you be fair to the people, not only to human beings, but also to animals. You treat them fairly. And obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has put all the laws in place. You can't harm the animals. You can't, for example, cow. Cow is not meant to be, to have a ride on it. So you're not supposed to be, having a ride on a cow. Horse is meant for that. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has clearly mentioned the rights of animals in many, many different aspects. In fact, just for, treating the animals with just, it will become the means of Jannat. And we find that in the light of hadith in the Quran. But this is not the time to go into all that. But so fundamentally, we find justice should be done to three things. Justice should be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with your own self, and also to whom? To the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now having said this here, now what we're going to focus today here is about justice with the people. Now doing justice with people, doing adl and justice with people, what does this mean here? Before I can mention this here, how important is this in the light of Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned this in various places. In one place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, O you who believe. Ya ayyuhal ladina amanu, O you who believe. Kunu qawamin, lillahi shuhada'a bil qist. Even today's kunu qawamin. Qawam in Arabic language is not just, become. Kunu means become. Qawam become, fulfill this here. And this is with, exaggeration. Mubalagha. In Arabic language you call this mubalagha. And if you're a student of Arabic, you'll understand what mubalagha means. With exaggeration. So don't just become, but really, really become a witness on any scene. Obviously, even by law, Canadian law, if you have witnessed something, then you have to testify for that. And I don't know too much details about it, but I know, you do become responsible if something does happen then obviously you can't just walk away from a crime scene. You have to testify, and obviously there's there are many laws and regulations for that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned this in the Quran. كُونُوا قَوَامِينَ لِلَّهِ شُهَدَاءَ. For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, become witness. كُونُوا قَوَامِينَ لِلَّهِ شُهَدَاءَ بِالْقِسْطِ, with justice. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, this is very important, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا اِعْدِلُوا. Let your animosity, your hatred, your ill feelings towards any person or any nation, let that not provoke you towards injustice. اِعْدِلُوا, do justice. So it's just because you don't like so-and-so person, he's not a friend of yours, I'm not going to testify on behalf of him in his favor, or because he's not from my family or something like that, I'm not going to treat him as justice. This should never happen. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ عَلَىٰ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا اِعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. Indeed, justice is more closer to piety and the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we learn from this ayat here that even if you have to testify against your own brother, so be it. Even if you have to testify against your own father, so be it. Even if you have to testify against your own close friend, obviously in today's time, Islam teaches us. The law of the land also tells us, but Islam teaches us that even if you have to testify against someone who is so close to you, you have to testify. And today, obviously, one of the biggest problems that the law enforcement people have is that people cover things up, right? Whenever there's a gang-related crime or something like that, what happens to people? Why is it that the truth never prevails? Because people are covering up. People are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So even if it's against your own person, you're not supposed to cover it up. So obviously the law of the land also tells us this, but on top of that, the Quran is also telling us this. So we learn from this that it's a sin. It's a sin. It's a crime in this world too, and it's a sin against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be unjust. Be just. And that should be our primary objective and goal. There's a very famous example here before I can carry on, but I would like to mention one story here. Hadha Ali radiallahu an. We find about Hadha Ali radiallahu an, he was one of the first person who was appointed to be the judge. By who? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He was the first person. I will go back and I will explain about him further. But before explaining to you about Hadha Ali radiallahu an, how he became a judge, even though he was a very young person, there's a very interesting story about him when he was brought to a court. Now look, he is the ruler. Obviously there was some misunderstanding that took place between Hadha Ali radiallahu an and Muawiyah radiallahu an. That's a topic of its own, the misunderstanding and the battle of Siffin, etc., that took place. But in that battle, Hadha Ali radiallahu an, who was the Amir, who was the leader, he lost his armor. When he lost his armor, and after the war was over, or the battle was over, when he came back, he saw a person, he was a Jew, he found him, what he was doing was, he was selling an armor. And Hadha Ali radiallahu anhu recognized that it was his own armor that he was selling. And people do that, right? And I heard about my brother telling me this, this happened in New York, you sometimes have to be careful about your own car. My brother told me last time when they went out in Jamaat, they probably went to a place in Jamaat where it wasn't too decent. Maybe the place wasn't too good or something like that. So they took the wheels out of their own van. And when they went down, 2 blocks down, they saw a person selling those wheels. So my brother he said that these wheels belong to our car. So he said that, well, I need money. You pay me and I'll give you. I'm not going to give you like that. Anyways, so Hadha Ali radiallahu an, he finds someone selling his own, and obviously he's not even a Muslim, and he is selling his armor. So he went to him and said that, can you give me my armor? This belongs to me. He said that, no, I can't give you this. So let's go to the court. And Qadi Shuraih, he is a very famous judge. And there's so much you can talk about him too. The type of judgments he gave, and how bright and how witty he was. You can explain so much about him. Qadi Shuraih. He was appointed by Umar radiallahu anh. He lived a life of over about 108 years. And he was one of those, Allah Ta'ala really blessed him with, judgment and understanding. So he was a judge at the time of Ali radiallahu anhu also. So the court is before them. The case is before the judge, Shurayh. And now understand one thing. Shurayh, yes, he was alive at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he did not get a chance to meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Therefore, is he a Sahabi? No, he is not a Sahabi. So obviously he has a lower rank than Ali radiallahu anhu, isn't it? Because Ali radiallahu anhu is a Sahabi. And he isn't. Despite that, Ali radiallahu anhu is before the judge. And he says, and he made a claim. And obviously there's a principle in Islam. There's a usul, a fundamental rule in Islam. Al-bayyinatu lil-mudda'i wal-yaminu ala man ankar. A claimant for him is witnesses. He has to substantiate his claim with witnesses, 2 witnesses. وَالْيَمِينُ عَلَى مَنْ أَنْكَرَ. And the person who is defending, he has to just take a qasam, an oath. So in this case here, Ali radiallahu anhu, obviously he was making a claim. So the judge said that, who are your witnesses? So there were 2 witnesses. Hassan, his son, and Qumbur, who was also his slave. Two witnesses. So Qadi Shurayh rejected this claim here and said that, look, as far as your son is concerned, he cannot testify in favor of you being the father of Hassan radiallahu anhu. Ali radiallahu anhu at that moment, he even mentioned that he is one of those, he was a grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They will be the leaders of Jannah, Sayyida Shababi Ahlil Jannah, which we normally talk about, whatnot. And you're saying this? Qadi Shurayh said that I have to go according to the law. The laws were set by Islam and I have to go according to that. I can't make any judgment here. So then obviously, the Jewish person, he was told to take qasam, oath, that, I take by the name of Allah, in the name of Allah, this, armor belongs to me. And if he said that, obviously it will belong to him. When he saw this here, that the Qadi Shurayh, who is being a tabi'i, who is low in rank, obviously compared to Amirul Mu'mineen. We're talking about the chief of all the chiefs. Right? Amirul Mu'mineen, the prime minister, in front of him. He is, obviously the verdict is being given in someone else's favor. When he saw this, he was forced and he was compelled to accept Islam. We can find this was the level of justice. Even if your own person. There are many occasions, I'm not going to go into detail, but you will find Hadr Umar radiallahu anhu. Hadr Umar radiallahu anhu, he himself, in many occasions, Hadr Umar radiallahu anhu, he himself, there was a case between him, Hadr Umar radiallahu anhu, and Ubay bin Ka'b radiallahu anhu. And I'm not going to go into detail, there's so much stories you can mention about this here. But, there was a case. And obviously the verdict was given against Hadr Umar radiallahu anhu because there was a dispute over a horse that he borrowed. When he realized this, Hadr Umar radiallahu anhu made Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu the qadi, the judge. So we find that Hadr Umar radiallahu anhu appreciated this so much that this person here is is giving a ruling on the basis of justice, even if it is against his prime minister. When he saw this, he was made the qadi and the judge. So we find this justice system prevalent, dominant in the time of the prophets and also in the time of Sahaba radiallahu ajma'een. Now we find, let's go back to some of the stories which are mentioned here. Maybe 1 or 2 stories I will mention. The first judge that we find, which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam appointed, was Ali radiallahu anhu. But Ali radiallahu anhu was a very young, he was young obviously, but Allah Ta'ala has really blessed him with what? Understanding. Very witty. He was known for this. Hadir Jawab. You get some people, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also give us the same understanding of Ali radiallahu anhu. He was, you're supposed to be saying Ameen. I know some of you, I don't know why you're sleeping or what. These are du'as. Maybe inshallah in this blessed gathering, du'as can be accepted. Right? So, Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, at one occasion, you may have heard the story before too. I don't know if I should mention this again or not. But the very famous story where 3 people, they came to Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu about the bread story. You heard that story before? I see some faces here, no? You know the bread story, which is very famous, well, okay, let me just go through that story very quickly here. But there's so many things that I need to say right now, and the time is it's going to lapse very quickly. But let me just quickly mention this story. He answered this so quickly. That was the beauty of Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu. He answered this, and I find engineers, they're also puzzled about this. When I mention the story to them, let's see what answer you can give. I had mentioned this long time ago. I don't know. I know some of you know about it. The story was two of them. Now listen to me very carefully, because you're going to have to follow through, okay? Two guys went on a picnic. One took 5 bread, and one took 3 bread along with them. Okay? And they both went on a picnic. So just say Yusuf took 5, and Ibrahim took 3. Now Ibrahim and Yusuf, they're best friends, so they both went on a picnic. Now all of a sudden, Zaid, he sees, hey, my friends are going for a picnic, I'm going to join them. So he's a door crasher, so he joins them, without bringing nothing. He did not bring anything, and he joins them. But he felt bad. Zaid, he felt bad that Ibrahim and Yusuf, they brought bread. Yusuf brought 5, and Ibrahim brought 3. And Zaid, he didn't bring anything with him. So he felt bad. That, this is not nice. They brought something, I didn't bring anything, but I've got cash with me. So he gives 8 coins. And he says, here, take this. Because I didn't bring any bread with. So they took it. Now keep in mind, Yusuf brought how many breads? 5. And Ibrahim brought how many? 3. So what they did was, what do you think they should do? How many should they take? 5 breads, so 5 coins, right? And 3 coins for who? Ibrahim, isn't it? Doesn't that make sense? 5 bread, 5 coins. 3 bread, 3 coins. Done, right? But Ibrahim was greedy. And he said that, no, I want to take more. We should get half out, 50-50. So now these guys are fighting. Ibrahim and Yusuf, they ended up, fighting. So now this case is brought before Hazrat Ali radiallahu anh. Now look at the beauty. Spontaneously, immediately he gives his answer. And let's see how you can come up with this answer. Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, when this case is brought to him, Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu tells who? Ibrahim, who brought 3 bread. He told him, Ibrahim, you are lucky that you're getting 3 coins. If I was to do justice with you, you'll end up with only 1. You'll end up with only 1. So Ibrahim's like, what? I was going for a 4th one, but now I'm only getting 3. I mean, I am only getting 1. Doesn't make sense. Does it make sense to you? It doesn't make sense? This is 100% justice. 100%. He was so witty, and he was able to give answers like that. Many people, when he asked this question to people, did you understand the question? Yes. Everyone understands the question? Huh? But who understands, who is that person in this gathering here who's able to understand this, who knows the answer, but he did not, get the answer from someone, but he's able to come with an answer. Is there anyone here who can come with an answer, and who did not, hear someone, giving the answer? If you heard someone, obviously, what good did you do? You're taking it from someone else. Right. Anyways, let me just try giving you the answer here, or should we leave it for next time? Let's see how much what you can come up with. No? You want the answer now? Ask this question to your teacher, your math teacher. All right. So anyways, so the answer was very simple. Look, you have to assume. Are you going to assume that Ibrahim, Yusuf had a big belly, so he ate more? Can you do that? Or he had a smaller belly, so he ate less. He looks big, so he ate more. Can you do that? No. That's not the way of justice. Sometimes skinny guys eat more than big guys, right? Okay. So what happened here was, to do complete justice, you have to assume that those 8 breads were ate equally. Right? Equally. So obviously in those days, in today's time, we have what? Calculators. So we're able to go into what? 0.0, 0.001, 2, 3, whatever. We can go into that. But back in the days, they never had that. But alhamdulillah, they had a better system, better math system, even though they had no calculators, but they have better system than us. We think that, we have a calculator, so we're more advanced. No, not necessarily, no. They had many more systems, navigation system. Navigation system through the stars. Not many people will know about it. But they're able to make it to many different destinations just by looking at the stars. They were great astronomers. They were blessed with great intelligence. It's just that we may be thinking, we have all those Is it Tom? That GPS system, whatnot. See, that's the way we figure things out, right? No, they had better system than us in those days too. So anyways, Hazrat Ali radiallahu anh, he says that obviously they had no fraction. What they used to do is obviously you can't go into decimals. Now, if you divide 8 into 3, then you get what? 2 point something? Right? You can't divide that equally, can you? No. Well, obviously you have to divide it perfectly. You're not going to break that coin up and make all the pieces and make this many cents. Can you do that? No. And also keep in mind, in those days it was dirham and dinar. Dirham was a silver coin and dinar was a gold coin. So what Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu does, when you can't divide, this is such a beautiful way of doing math. 8 cannot be divided. You can't divide 8 equally into 3. Right? So what you do? What do you do? When you can't divide, what do? You multiply. You're making the number bigger. Well, that's right. You're making the number bigger. So now what happens? 8 times 3. What's the answer now? 24. So we will assume that there were how many pieces? 24 pieces of 8 bread. How many pieces? 24 pieces. Now each one of them ate how many? Come on, guys. You can say 8 pieces, right? Equally. Okay. Now, one person who did not bring any bread, he also ate 8, right? Okay. They all. Now, if you look at 8 pieces, everyone ate. Now, that person who brought 5 breads, how many pieces did he bring altogether? Tell me, come on. 8 times 3, 5 times 3 is what? 15. So out of 15, how many did he eat? 8. And how many remaining? 7. And the person who brought only 3 bread, how many pieces did he have? 9. So he ate 8 of his, and only one who ate? Zaid. You guys understand this? Huh? So how much should Zaid get now? Because he only ate 1. Of who? Right? There's only 1 he ate. Only 1 piece. So Zaid should, who? Ibrahim should only deserve what? 1 dirham. And 7 dirham should go to who? Yusuf. This was justice. Now obviously we need to go through all these technicalities and explain to her. But Hazrat Ali radiallahu anh, spontaneously. There's another example which is mentioned, it's called Mas'alatul Mimbariyya. But unfortunately none of us understand miras. No one understands inheritance. If you understood that, one woman, she comes and immediately he gave an answer. Immediately, spontaneously. But this was how Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, he was blessed with that. So when he became, obviously Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recognized who Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu. That is why in the khutbah, what do we hear? وَأَقَضَاهُمْ Ali. Don't you hear this saying all the time? The khatib, the people that give sermon, they always say what? وَأَقَضَاهُمْ Ali. وَأَقَضَاهُمْ Ali means, and amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the person with the best justice and the best judgment was who? Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu. So Rasul, he said that, look, I am so young, and how can you, I don't want to, he was reluctant. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, become. Inna Allah azza wa jal sayahdi qalbak. He will guide your heart. Wa yuthbitu lisanak. And he will make your tongue firm. So when you speak something, when you give that judgment, you will be very precise. وَيُثْبِتُ لِسَانَكَ فَإِذَا جَلَسَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْكَ الْخَصَمَيْنِ. When the two opposite parties, when the two parties, when they sit before you, what should you do? فَلَا تَقْضِي حَتَّى تَسْمَعَ مِنَ الْآخَرِ. Don't you ever make a judgment by listening to one party until you have listened to the second party. فَلَا تَقْضِي حَتَّى تَسْمَعَ مِنَ الْآخَرِ كَمَا سَمِعْتَ مِنَ الْأَوَّلِ. Just like how you heard the first party, in a similar manner, listen to the second party before you make any judgment. because you will be in a better position to make the judgment. In there, inshallah, we'll mention one story in the light of Quran, but this is a very important point that we need to understand. Unfortunately, in today's time, we become biased. And one of the reasons why we become biased, we hear one person. You know what that guy was doing? You don't even know, you have not even heard. A person comes to you, a close friend of yours, he comes to you and he starts complaining. And he says what? He says that, that guy was doing that. So this, just assume Yusuf. He is best friend of yours. He is complaining about someone. Now you don't even know what that other person did or what Yusuf did to the other person. Obviously Yusuf is going to say whatever he wants to say in his favor. You will listen to Yusuf's story, and now you will take complete side with Yusuf, and you don't even want to think about that other person. One of the problems that we have today, and we need to get rid of this, be it our friends, be it our cousins, be it our relatives, be it our family members, whoever it may be, in a matter of justice, we can never ever listen to one side of the story and make a judgment. If you do this, inshallah, in future, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless you with the understanding of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Say Ameen. Inshallah, if I have time, inshallah, I'll go into that story. But when you become an arbitrator, a mediator between the two parties, never ever make a judgment by listening to one side. Don't say anything until you have, look, we just heard the hadith, right? In the hadith, what did Rasulullah tell Hadrat Ali radiallahu anh? Just like you have heard the first person, listen to the same person in the similar manner. Till you don't do this, don't you ever make any judgment. Upon this, there's a beautiful story mentioned here, and this is mentioned in the Quran. هَلْ أَتَاكَ نَبَأُ الْخَصْمِ. There's so much to be said about Hazrat Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. Inshallah, if we get time, inshallah, we will elaborate on who Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam was. But let me mention one story about him, which is mentioned in the Quran. هَلْ أَتَاكَ نَبَأُ الْخَصْمِ إِذْ دَخَلُوا عَلَى دَاوُودَ فَفَزِعَ مِنْهُمْ قَالُوا لَا تَخَفْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm sure you heard of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. Which book was given to him? Come on. Psalms, right? And that book is called what? Zabur. Good. Right? This book was given to who? Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam. He was an eminent prophet. He was also the father of who? One of those great eminent prophets, and his name is Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Good, very good. It is mentioned about him, and this is mentioned right in the Quran. هل أتاك نبأ الخصم إذ تصوروا المحراب إذ دخلوا على داود ففزع منهم. Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, he was very particular in his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We also get that type of, we also built that type of relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He had set 3 days. There were 3 cycles he had. One cycle was exclusively between him and Allah. On that day, he will not do anything except for worshipping Allah. The second day was basically for his family members. Any chores, whatever he had to do, exclusively for his family members. But that doesn't mean he will also overlook the mandatory ibadat and worship of Allah. No, he will do that. But other than that, he will give his time to his family members. And the third day was, he would sit in the court and give a verdict, and he'll give rulings. Now one day, also keep this in mind, Hazrat Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, despite having these 3 cycles, he also had another system. This was the beauty. You know how he used to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's so unique. To fulfill the gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he had done in his family member, throughout the whole 24 hours, you will not find a single moment in which one of his family members is not worshipping Allah. So he had scheduled his whole family in such a way that 24-hour cycle, there would be someone from his family member that would be worshipping exclusively to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about that. So unique. And on top of that, he had one exclusive day for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one day, as usual, he was in his worship. All of a sudden, and obviously he had a nice big palace, big wall, gates, and no one can just cross that so easily. He had guards, whatnot. And one day, all of a sudden, some people just came through. And when they came through, they intrude into his house, they barged into his house, And he was surprised. And he was in a shock. And he was thinking that, where did these people come from? First he was in a shock whether these people are human beings or are they another creation. Who are these people here? If they were normal people, then my guards were there, the wall was so big, and how did they cross, and how did they just come like that? They knew exactly when to come, when the court is open, whatnot. How did they just come like that? And perhaps they're not human beings because the way they came. So he was confused, and he was also shocked, and he was scared. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions. هَلْ أَتَاكَ نَبَأُ الْخَصْمِ O Prophet of Allah, did you get the message of who? About the opponents of Dawud ala Nabiyina alayhi salatu wasalam, the team that came to Dawud ala Nabiyina alayhi salatu wasalam. هَلْ أَتَاكَ نَبَأُ الْخَصْمِ اتَّصَوَّرُوا الْمِحْرَابِ. Tasawwur means basically they climbed over, they jumped over. They jumped over and they got into mihrab, the worship place. Mihrab means the worship place. إِذْ دَخَلُوا عَلَى دَاوُودَ. They came to Dawud ala Nabiyina alayhi salatu wasalam. فَفَزِعَ. And he was terrified, he was scared. فَفَزِعَ مِنْهُمْ قَالُوا لَا تَخَوْا. They said, don't be scared. This is a similar story to which story? Which story is it? This is similar to which story? Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. You remember? When a group of angels, Hazrat Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam and other angels, they came and they were about to destroy the nation of who? Lut alayhi salatu wasalam, because of their homosexualism and whatnot. So before they can go there, they stopped over at whose place? Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. So when they stopped over here, أَلَا تَأْكُلُونَ, they're not eating any food. Aren't you eating any food? So now he's starting to get scared. You know that story. I'm sure you heard of that story, right? Anyways. So obviously he's scared. And now they came with a case. And one person here, now these were angels. And they came to test Dawud ala Nabiyina salatu wasalam. Now, there's two things here. I don't know if I can really go through it. There's two parts to this here. One is, what was the story? What was the case? And the second part is, why was Dawud ala Nabiyina alayhi salatu wasalam tested? It's all mentioned in the Quran. Everything is mentioned in the Quran. These are the ayats. Many different things have been said. But, they're not authentic. They're from Israeli riwayat. Israeli basically means, Israelites, from other books. But in the light of hadith and Quran, and in the light of authentic tafsirs, Ibn Kathir, there's one very authentic story that took place here, that we can put our trust in. And why did this happen? These are the two questions. What was the story? What was, they came here, and why did they come? They were angels, I can tell you this much. But why did they come, and what was their case? And why was Dawud ala Nabiyina sallallahu alaihi wasallam tested? Inshallah, we're going to have to leave the program here. We'll talk about this later. And then inshallah we will talk about, some other things that we need to keep in mind as far as, talking about justice is concerned. But, the time is up. So, inshallah we will talk about this next time. Just remember this much though. I think, we've covered so much. But keep this much in mind and make sure you remember these questions. Open your hearts up. We're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the time. Alhamdulillah, many young faces here. And you have put so much sacrifice. This is the time you should be asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. اللهم لك الحمد كله ولك الشكر كله وإليك يرجع الأمر كله اللهم لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك يا رب صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما. Oh Allah, forgive our sins. Ya Allah, forgive our sins. Ya Allah, in this blessed environment, Ya Allah, in this blessed environment, Ya Allah, in this blessed place, Ya Allah, accept our gathering. Ya Allah, accept our assembly. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, whatever has been said, Ya Allah, we have been talking about, Ya Allah, justice. Ya Allah, let this system come into our life, into the life of every member of this world. Ya Allah, let this justice system prevail around the world. Ya Allah, let everyone succumb, Ya Allah, to the system of justice. Ya Allah, make it easy for all of us, Ya Allah, to practice, Ya Allah, upon justice system. Ya Allah, make it easy for us. Ya Allah, these beloved youngsters, Ya Allah, they have sacrificed, Ya Allah, their time, playing time, other activity time, Ya Allah, just to come here. Ya Allah, accept their coming here. Ya Allah, you are the only one who can give us tawfiq and ability, Ya Allah, to come to the places like this. Ya Allah, accept our coming here, accept our coming here. Ya Allah, whatever Ya Allah, problems these youngsters are having, Ya Allah, alleviate those problems. Ya Allah, their mothers and sisters, Ya Allah, make it easy for them too. Ya Allah, anyone in our family, Ya Allah, who is sick, Ya Allah, give them speedy recovery. Ya Allah, bless them with a speedy recovery. Ya Allah, anyone, Ya Allah, who is having any kind of problem, Ya Allah, you look after, Ya Allah, everything, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we can only put trust in you. Ya Allah, make it easy for all of us. All those brothers and sisters around the world that are going through sufferings, Ya Allah, make it easy for them. Ya Allah, alleviate them from, Ya Allah, any kind of difficulty and hardship. Ya Allah, give us the ability to become more closer to you, Ya Allah.